evening. This is Dr. Lee. We are here with MiTio's expert interpreter panel. We're going to be talking today with two amazing facilitators and coaches and experienced interpreters, certified experienced interpreters with MiTio. So first we have Tatiana Ford and we also have Dr. Pei Zhang. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, give us a little bit of their bio, and then we're going to ask them questions about what it's like to be an interpreter today, and just kind of dig deep into the world of interpreting. So Tatiana, if you don't mind giving us a little bit of your bio, and then we'll go with Dr. Zhang.
Sure. My name is Tatiana Ford. I was born in Russia, Sakhalin Island. For those of you who don't know, this is the farthest eastern border of Russia. It's a pretty large island north of Japan. Hence, my further education. I studied Japanese and English in the university. Well, it started as Teachers Training Institute, and then it grew into Sakhalin State University. So I studied in Oriental faculty. And after that, I worked for one Japanese company first. It was retail. And then I switched to oil and gas company, which was still a joint venture between Japanese, Russian, and American companies. And worked in that industry for a while, and then moved to United Arab Emirates, where I continued with the same company. So my interpreting role, there were other job descriptions, but interpreting was always kind of within, throughout my work, because we always worked internationally and with different international companies. Later on, here in the States, I was really trying to implement my education, but somehow it didn't quite work. So for a while, I had a break from that particular profession, and COVID happened. I never had online education. I was a little bit skeptical about it, but honestly, sometimes bad things lead to good things. I found MiTio, got my online diploma course, went immediately for certification, successfully got it, and I started working with MiTio as facilitator, which I absolutely love, because at the moment we did not have Russian facilitator. So I'm pretty happy to be here. Oh, and I forgot to mention that while in the Middle East, I also received my degree in psychology with counseling. And my thesis was ironically about the well-being of wives in bilingual versus monolingual marriages. So that all the pieces of the puzzle now kind of come in handy where I am now. So I also now work with AMN Healthcare, who now partnered with MiTio as an interpreter. Absolutely enjoyed. So here we are.
Wonderful. Thank you for that bio, Tatiana. Okay, Dr. Zhang.
Hi, everyone. This is Pei Zhang. I was born in China, and I spent my first 20 years in China. For college, I studied medicine. In China, it's after post-high school degree to study medicine for 5 years. So I have a medical degree from China, and then I decided to go to Europe for my master's degree. And then I also subsequently did a PhD there in neuroscience. So my thesis was about Alzheimer's disease, why people forget, why people remember, and those kind of things. So also during my bachelor's study, I did 1 year exchange in Japan. So I was kind of a bit all over the world. And so I studied Japanese and French and German during my earlier stage of life. And after my PhD, I wanted to move to the United States with my husband because of his work. And I was thinking, I don't like research anymore. And I'm tired of killing mice every day, getting bloody hands and things. So I found MiTio online, and this is a wonderful online education opportunity. So I actually completed my MiTio course while I was still in Germany, and I also took the CMI national certification test when I was in Germany. So it all worked out pretty well. And after I came to the United States, I could immediately get a job at MGH, this Mass General Hospital, as a hospital interpreter. So I was very happy with the opportunity I could get with MiTio. Now I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I'm kind of doing some side jobs for MiTio as a facilitator, also consulting, also patent work. So yeah, I'm a freelancer right now, I would say. That's where I am.
I love that. And the fact that language has allowed you guys to do that, right? Just the freedom to work in various places, whether it's in person, online, remotely. So that's amazing. So we are going to now launch directly into the questions that were submitted, and we're just going to make this as conversational as possible. So for anyone out there that doesn't know about the industry, you guys are the experts, and I want you guys to really just educate them on these things. Okay, so the first question that I have is, and we'll just go back and forth with who starts. Okay, so we'll start with you, Tatiana, first. Why did you choose to become an interpreter?
Well, I was born behind the Iron Curtain. Some of you, the younger ones, may have to Google what it is. I won't be taking time explaining. So anything foreign was something unattainable and fascinating. So also, I loved where I was. I didn't want to travel what they call the mainland for the university. And we had the university right there. And the best, the most prestigious was Japanese and English. So I went for it, absolutely enjoyed it, because we always had, teachers from Japan and the States and UK. And plus languages kind of always been my thing, I guess. Both of my parents are teachers of Russian and literature. So since I was really little, I would be scolded like, no, there is no such Russian word, or no, this is not the stressed syllable and stuff like that. At first it was annoying, but I guess it kind of, you grow into it and then it becomes your second nature. So, and it was a door into a completely different world. Now, literally, yeah. So somehow, yeah, it was something I really wanted to do early on.
Wonderful. And Dr. Pei, what about you? Why did you want to become an interpreter?
Just like Tatiana, I was interested in languages since a very young age. So in China, if you study English well, then you get all kinds of opportunities, like school exchange program, like scholarships and those kind of things. So I really enjoyed learning languages, and I had this motivation. And so I wanted to put it to good use. Also that I studied medicine. So I think medical interpreter sounds like the right combination for me at the moment. That's why I decided.
Awesome. Well, we'll stay with you. Why do you say that there are pros and cons to working remotely as an interpreter?
I think the only cons I can think about is that you don't interact so much with colleagues, or you don't meet new people every day, like in a real office. But the pros are so much for me right now, because now if I look at job opportunities, the first thing I'm looking at is, can I work remotely, please? Because I need to take care of my baby right now. My husband commutes to work every day, so I need to stay home with my daughter 24/7. So working remotely is the big benefits. And also, it is very flexible, the time that you can set when you want to work. Even if my baby sleeps at 11 p.m., then I can work after midnight if I want. So that's awesome. Very flexible.
Right, because there's people 24/7 somewhere in the world, right?
Yes.
Very good.
They forgot to mention that also, and I've learned that term just recently. Have you ever heard of a Zoom mermaid?
No, what's that?
It's when you don't have to care how your lower body looks like. Nobody, what you're wearing, you can get really comfortable, yoga pants, whatever, but
the top is presentable, right?
Yeah. And as for the cons, they're not huge, but there are some, just to be fair. Sitting a lot. So my advice would be, do get a comfortable chair, do get a good desk. I absolutely love my L-shaped that you can also, change the height in case if your background allows you to stand sometimes, great. Other than that, just like, hey, I don't think there are any other cons. You don't commute. So you don't really, spend so much time getting from place to place. Flexibility definitely is a plus. One thing about being able to go on site, though, this really allows you to kind of learn things from within. But then again, maybe just several appointments here and there are enough to kind of get that. And once you're familiar with it already, when you see it on the video, you're clued in.
Okay, let's dig deep a little bit on that. I know that I've heard anecdotally that when you work remotely, you're not getting as many appointments. Have you guys experienced that? As far as the pay, is there a pay gap working remotely versus working on site?
On site, our wage is higher, but again, you can only squeeze so many appointments in certain periods. So basically, I would think it probably evens it out, or maybe depending on how exactly you work, whether you're paid per hour, per minute. Some freelancers are paid per minute. Mm-hmm. I would suspect that altogether, you probably will get a better pay remotely simply because you can squeeze more into a unit of time without traveling from place to place.
Okay.
Unless you're in the same facility, which I doubt.
I think some online remote interpreting company, they also pay you for every hour that you're sitting there ready to interpret, not how many minutes you interpret, but how many hours you're ready to be there.
Okay. Okay, so
it varies. There are some that, and it's up to you because flexibility is really important. Say especially when you start, you may not want to sign up for a full hour. You can try just per minute rates just to kind of get the feel of it. And then yes, you commit, but then it's more fixed schedule. 5 hours, and it doesn't matter how many calls you receive, which I have to say we're pretty busy.
Okay.
Pretty busy. Yeah.
Awesome. So you guys have not, I'm going to dig deep a little bit more on this one. So do you find that your languages that you're interpreting, do they keep you busy enough? I know you kind of answered that question, Tatiana, but I've heard also from other interpreters that it's really hard to, to get enough hours with certain languages. We know that Spanish is very much needed in the US, but what about the other languages? So you guys both speak other languages other than Spanish. So what are your experiences there? Dr. Pei?
For Mandarin, I think the market is pretty big. I get plenty of opportunities. If I search online for Mandarin interpreting opportunities, I can, if I want to get the job, I think I can go out there and get it. So there are plenty of opportunities for Mandarin.
Wonderful.
Russian, I would think it really depends geographically. If we're talking about on-site, then definitely the size of the community of a particular language matters. And I would say, I assume that people who live on the coasts would get more opportunity to work on site. Say I'm in Arizona, there's literally almost none. I've only been to 2 on-site appointments, but then when you work remotely, it doesn't really matter where you are. It all depends on how many languages this company provides, the company you work for. And I work for a pretty large company, and they provide service in so many languages. And like I said, we are busy. Sometimes they even sometimes show, okay, here's a small, time unit where we show low coverage. Can someone else step in? So it's pretty busy. I was surprised. Yeah, pleasantly surprised.
Very good. That's good to know. All right, well, let's move on. The next question is, do you experience a salary difference between being certified or non-certified? So you're both certified, but did you guys experience a salary increase once you became certified?
I would. I will start first. So when I first came to the United States, I got this job at MGH, but back then I have sit the oral exam, but I haven't got the result yet. So they gave me a base salary for starting. And after a month or so, I received the result that I passed. So I told my manager immediately and I got a raise. The hourly rate immediately raised. So there's a difference for sure.
So it did help for you. Awesome.
Yes.
It definitely does work. First of all, some companies even show immediately, like this is what it will be if you're just, if you're not certified, and then they're like other. Some companies show significant difference between the two, certified versus uncertified. And when I was being hired in the middle of the interview, I think they either missed the fact that I was certified or something, and they first kind of gave me a certain number, and I was a little bit, oh, okay. And they go, oh my God, no, you're certified, right? So there. Okay, that sounds much better. Yes, so
that was a better price.
Absolutely, there is a difference. Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so for all our prospective and current interpreters out there, or current students rather, becoming certified as soon as possible definitely helps.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, so let's continue. Can you explain the difference between a certified interpreter and a non-certified interpreter? All the benefits. So we talked about the benefit in terms of salary. Are there any other benefits that you have found? Let's start with you, Tatiana.
The one that was standing out immediately to me, because what I did not go looking for a job. I told myself I will get certified first. I wasn't even trying. So in that respect, and the researcher will tell you, this is a little bit of what confounding variable, isn't it? I have nothing to compare with, but I didn't even want to try. But what I found is, when you're certified, first of all, you show up in certain registries like NBCMI here and there. And when employers are looking, they're looking for certified. They will hire whatever they need, how many they need. But for sure, if you're certified, you will be picked first. And on many occasions, I was the one contacted by employers, not that I had to look, though I was looking. But it definitely kind of puts you, you're being seen by employers, and it's easier for an employer to hire certified interpreter that they can skip all the, testing.
Exactly.
So it saves you as well, in terms of going through all the anxiety being tested every time you get hired.
Exactly. You get tested one time and you're done,
Yep. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Okay, and Dr. Bay?
Yes, so if you are certified, first of all, you will be in the CMI National Certificate Registry. Then your name and email contact information will be there. So some employers, like Tatiana said, would reach out to you automatically, although there are some scams that you have to differentiate, but you definitely get contacted. And also that I remember after I got my certification, I immediately got my badge as a certified national interpreter. And then if I go to work wearing that badge, the patients and doctors, they trust you easily. And there's the communication are definitely more efficient.
I like that. Wonderful. So that gives you a little bit more sense of, it gives you a credential that you can then share with your colleagues, especially in the medical field, that everyone has a credential, right? So definitely professionalizes you. I love that.
The badge that Paige just mentioned, it actually makes you feel like you're almost wearing a uniform, right? Like you're not another patient, or they can't tell what you are. Exactly. You're there in a certain professional capacity. Yeah, so it really, it's nice.
Wonderful. Well, that's good to know. See, that's a little tidbit that we would not have known unless we spoke to professional interpreters. All right, moving on. How do you distinguish yourself as the best interpreter when entering the field? So do you have letters of recommendation? How do you basically stand out from the crowd? Let's start with Ping.
First of all, definitely the education from MiTio helped really a lot. I think it's one of the best online interpreter program that you can find. And educated by MiTio is one of the most important thing. And then when I was looking for jobs, also I asked for recommendation letters from Dr. Lee, or like now current student, you can ask from the facilitators that you worked with as well. So the recommendation letters also matters. Yes, and finally the national certificate, that definitely helps.
Wonderful. Now, do you find, Tatiana, I'll go to you in a second, but did you also find that they ask for experience, and did that make a difference as well?
I personally think sometimes they don't ask for experiences, they just look at your credentials, and also you don't need to have work experience to enter the field, I think, because otherwise a lot of people will be excluded just by this. Also that some jobs, if you don't have the certificate, they will give you a on-site test, maybe over the phone test, that you have to record your answers, and they will grade you. And if you're qualified, you're qualified. You don't have to have that much of experience.
Okay, all right, Tatiana.
So just to add to what Pei mentioned regarding experience, this is why I think certification is great, because even if you don't have experience in the field, even if you have never interpreted before, but the fact that you passed, especially if you're don't just go hub CMI, if you go, and unfortunately not all languages have oral exam, but if you pass oral exam, and believe me, you have to have certain level of language skills in both languages to pass that exam. So when you do, your employers know you're there. So truly, it doesn't really matter whether or not you have experience, though, of course, experience is great. Yeah. So you can add experience to that list for sure, to answer the original question. And educational background, I'm sure, of course, for example, Dr. Lee's degree and Pei degree, in is it in medical field? Right. Well, there you go. Of course, it would, makes you, stand out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit. Let's dig a little bit into what it takes to pass the certification exam. So we just kind of glossed over it. But what does it take? I mean, obviously they have to apply first. That it requires education. So we tell everyone you can't even apply if you haven't trained as a medical interpreter. But what else does it take to get certified? Tatiana, if you could go first.
Practice, practice, practice. When it comes to that exam, first of all, I have to say, I think it's very well organized in terms of what they do check what they need to check, and it shows. If you pass it seriously, the skill is there. But because it's computerized, there is no human factor involved there. You can't really ask the machine to hold on a second and stuff like that. So a lot of about passing the exam comes down to, first of all, how you control your stress level, because we all get anxious during exams. Yes. Note taking. Without it, forget it. And the thing is, I was really hoping, because I absolutely love my whiteboard. So good. They don't allow whiteboard. But so you have to, before you can switch to whiteboard after your certification, because it's perfect. I mean, to me, but you need to master your note-taking skills. I think that I would probably put that on top.
So what you guys teach during the live sessions actually helps.
We do, yes. And now we started also during individual sessions, and I think it was actually originated, Pei said, why don't we do like a mock exam? Of course, we must tell our viewers that nothing that we use for our mock exam repeats any information that is in the actual exam. But at least what we do, and I even try to implement it during my sessions, we give longer segments. The speed has to be there. The 8-second thinking time is there. So just to give our students try it, because it's important to know what to expect, how it goes, and stuff like that.
So what Tatiana is referring to is the coaching sessions that we offer in addition to the facilitator, life facilitator sessions. Pei, if you could expound on that, Dr. Pei, if you could expound on what Tatiana.
First of all, I totally agree with Tatiana about practice, practice, practice. So if you could attend, if possible, attend every live sessions that you can, and then try to get private coaching from MiTio as well. Those are the great opportunities you can practice. And note taking, yes, as Tatiana said, is very important in passing the exam. So personally, I'm pretty old school, so I still use paper and pen. But whiteboard is also a great choice. But remember that during the exam, you only allowed paper and pen and also a paper dictionary. I know that's pretty outdated, but because when you're out in the field, you would need like phone or electronic dictionary to check words, not a paper one. This takes forever to flip through. Also, Tatiana said the stress level or how you present yourself, be confident, try to use a normal tone so that you can get higher grades. I know some students even freak out during the live sessions, that when they are suddenly on the stage and everyone's giving them attention, they freak out and they perform so much worse than they normally does. So manage your stress level, try to relax. I would say practice with the live sessions is one of the best. Even if you don't have that many credits to go there, just try to be an observer also helps, that you can do.
Yeah.
Well, so just kind of digging deep into that, so the live sessions kind of mimic what they would experience is in the certification exam as well as in real life, right? That was the purpose of doing them. Have you noticed students improving from the beginning of their live sessions and towards the end when they're getting ready to graduate?
Definitely. That some students at the beginning, they cannot even finish their sentence. They stuck at every word, and after a few months or 1 or 2 months, and they become much more fluent. That you can definitely notice the difference. And they also would say express their gratitude to you. They say, thanks to this live sessions, I got much better. Now I'm confident to pass the exam and things like that.
Awesome. Tatiana, do you have something to add?
You can see the confidence level changing for sure. Everyone, I know we're all timid, because yes, all of a sudden, all ears are, no eyes, we only have audio sessions only. Right. Everybody's listening, you're the only one speaking to the universe, especially if you have another or more than one student who speaks your target language, then you're really on the spot there. Okay. But then, like a couple sessions and you're good. And it's a great atmosphere in the chat box where, students who speak same target language can kind of shoot, helping you with terminology and stuff like that. So, but definitely the improvement you can see. Yeah. So
practice is the key, and having professional, certified, experienced interpreters to help with that is definitely a plus. So that's awesome. All right, so let's move on. So I think you guys shared a little bit about this when you were doing your bios, but if you can go into if you missed any, what fields have you worked in other than hospitals? Have you worked in the court system? Have you worked in schools? Have you worked in front of large audiences, say, as a stage, or maybe even like a UN interpreter, that type of thing? What other settings have you worked as an interpreter? Dr. Pei, you can go first.
So apart from hospitals, I also worked remotely for general purpose interpretation. So for example, some elderly people have issues with their credit card and they call the credit card company or something. I also interpreted random topics like this. For conferences, for sure, I did some medical research conference interpretation as well. It's but not that much. I would say working remotely and hospitals are the two most common things, most common job opportunities for medical interpreters.
How was the difference between working remotely, working in a hospital, working in a conference? What are the different skill sets that you have to have for each of those?
Actually, working for conferences, you can prepare. That's one of the difference, that they give you the slides or topics that you know all the terminologies, you can check beforehand. So you are actually not that stressed. But
Okay.
if you are over the phone, you don't know what's happening there. Somebody, they sound pretty anxious about their issue, and then I get anxious with them, I guess, all sweaty and everything. Yeah, it's quite stressful to do over the phone interpretation because you don't see their faces, you don't know what's happening there, and sometimes it can be urgent.
Got it, got it. Let me go back to the conference real quick. When you do a conference, are you there with the patient or are you in a booth oftentimes?
No, not with patient, just as maybe a side by side with the speaker, that they speak and I speak, something like that.
Got it. Awesome. How about you, Tatiana? Do you have experience in different fields other than medical interpreting?
As a student, we started interpreting, pretty early here and there. I once traveled to Japan with a Russian teachers union. They were meeting there in Hokkaido and Sapporo with the Japanese teachers union. That was pretty stressful because they were being taken to, very high level, governor this and mayor and all that. Luckily, there was a Japanese lady interpreter. I guess they even prefer. Honestly, I was very happy to let her. But the rest, are during meetings and our conversations just between colleagues. I was interpreting back then. Then after I graduated, I worked for Japanese company first. And as I mentioned, it was retail. Basically, Japanese supermarket, they tried to open their business in Russia. So that was something different and interesting. So I was HR and interpreting between our Japanese bosses and our Russian employees.
Wow.
And then I switched to oil and gas, and basically after that, most my interpreting was in business settings, business meetings, also translation because you'd have contracts, quotations, this and that. Never conferences. There was just, I was not in any field to, to do that. But yeah, mostly business.
I'm sorry.
And medical then kind of came
after that.
Yeah.
Let's dig a little bit into what you mentioned as far as contracts. So oftentimes interpreters are called upon to either do site translations or to do an actual translation of a document. What skill sets are, what's the difference in the skill sets between a translator and an interpreter? Tatiana.
If we're talking about site interpreting, to tell you the truth, if you are in the topic, I actually like it because you have it right there in front of you. It depending, I guess, on your perception. I see it, it's there, all the words are there, you don't need to take notes, you just need to have a look. Okay, you need to think about how to structure a sentence properly. But other than that, if you are in the topic, I like site interpreting. However, I know that many companies, and I would maybe it's even across the industry, if you work as a video interpreter, you cannot do site translation. Say, for example, they give you here, can you read this? So what you can do, the best you can do is when the provider reads you sentence by sentence and you can interpret, but even that is a little bit, it's just if there is a document there that needs proper translation that providers need to find, maybe, print out in the target language and stuff like that.
How about translated documents? What type of skill sets did you need for that? Like when you did those for your business?
Obviously, your grammar has to be there because what can kind of be overlooked in oral speech stays on paper. Yeah, so in both languages, your grammar has to be there. Yeah, obviously, with translating, you have more time to think about it. How to structure. Even sometimes you put it, no, you can redo. with oral interpretation, you don't have a second chance. Yeah.
That's true. How about you, Dr. Pei? Have you done any translating? And if so, what skills?
Yes, actually, I was doing some translation for technical papers, medical research papers or patents, those kind of thing. Also that when I was working as a medical interpreter in hospitals, I sometimes need to translate the questionnaire forms for patients, like have you had this, then this disease, those kind of things. I would say side translation and written translation are much relaxed, as Tatiana has said. Also that for this kind of translation, your working time is even more flexible. We mentioned that if you work remotely as an interpreter, your work time is flexible, but for translating, you can take your time and do the job whenever you want. Also in live sessions, we already...
I'm sorry. I was going to say, what's the turnaround time usually for those?
For translations, normally they give you several days, 3-5 days, depending on the amount. Rarely they ask it within a few hours, so you can take your time and do it whenever you want. Also, we in the live sessions, me and Tatiana, we offer the site interpretation practice often, that we give you some medical relevant materials to read with shared screen, and then you can take your time and translate for us. I would say one difference between interpretation and site interpretation is that with oral interpretation, you come up with really short sentences with all the key words, and you don't mind your grammar so much. There can be errors, but as long as you get the keywords right, you get the credit, or as in exam, you get the points. But in written translation, you have to be accurate and structure a sentence beautifully, consider context and everything. So you need to put more effort into it.
Okay. And the site translation is a part of the certification exam, correct?
Exactly.
Awesome. And so we are training our interpreters already for that, as you mentioned in the live sessions. And then MiTio also has a translation department as well. So we have a translation diploma that we also provide, as we mentioned, because it does require different skill sets. Awesome, you guys are doing excellent. I'm learning a lot myself. Just a little tidbits here and there. Next question. What do you do to best prepare for your day? What strategies, mindset do you use to best prepare? You both work remotely. What do you do to kind of psych yourselves out before this day starts? I'm not sure who was the first one last time, so just whoever wants to start.
Well, I try to start early, not start early job-wise. Like my shift starts at 9 a.m. So I try to get up like 6:30. I just like my morning to be as slow and uninterrupted as possible. I don't like running around and being in a hurry. And that way I have time for my breakfast. I have time to walk my dog. So by the time I sit down, I'm all ready, Yeah, so I've done all my morning chores and now I'm all here. Like I said, the environment really matters. I'm pretty sure for everyone. The question is what you prefer, but do organize your workstation just so you feel comfortable, because you will be spending several hours. As for after shifts, especially if it's long ones, like say several hours, right? You're sitting all the time. And I'm sure Dr. Zhang will confirm as a medical doctor that now we're facing, it's almost like modern time pandemic with very bad posture. Yes. Everyone is looking at their gadgets. The neck problem is a big issue for your health. So you really have to take care of yourself. If you sit so much, you need to absolutely find some time, even if it's just 15 minutes of some physical activity, whatever it is. It really is important. So just to, keep up.
You guys do like stretching exercises or
anything, whatever works for you, but yeah, you absolutely have to do it. Otherwise you will pretty soon, it will catch up with you.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is across other industries, not just medical
Yeah,
interpreting.
nowadays, now that so many people work from home and sitting so much, yeah, it does go across industries.
Awesome.
So that would be my tips.
Yes. Okay. Dr. Payne, do you have some additional tips for us?
For me, the first key point is to shut the door and have your own space. So otherwise, the children will storm in, or the dog barking in, everything. So you need to have a quiet space for that. And second, I personally, if you do video interpreting, you should maybe make yourself presentable, do your hair or makeup if you want, and dress properly. That's also important. But just for any type of interpretation, you need to have a clean table. That you should be organized. Otherwise, things are falling apart everywhere. So be organized and try to keep a clean table. That's also important, I would say.
And what time do you normally start your day?
Well, that really depends when the baby sleeps. So there's no fixed schedule. I tried for, yes. So I tried an online jobs that you can log in whenever you're free, even for 7 minutes, 10 minutes, that you can log in and get a phone call and then hang up and go back to your baby. So I prefer that types of jobs.
I love it. This is good info, I think, for a lot of people to really see what the profession is like. So you either have scheduled times or you can have super flexible times. That's awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to give my little, how do I get my day started? I'm also remote. I do my job from home, but I have a longer morning, kind of similar to Tatiana, in that I start off with meditation, and then I go to my workout, and then my breakfast, and then I get my day started. I usually work very late at night, but my mornings are all about self-care and just getting myself ready for the day. And what I do for not having to sit down all the time is that I have my workstation at my my breakfast bar. So I stand up most of the time. I try to stand as long as possible. Then I'll sit down for a little bit in a very uncomfortable chair. Because I find if I have a super comfortable chair, I'll sit there all day long. So I try to sit in a wooden chair if I have to sit, but I try to stand up as long as possible. Because as you mentioned, sitting is very bad for your posture, and it's just bad overall for your circulation. So try to stand up as much as possible just to get the blood body flowing whenever you can. Those are just my little health tidbits since we were talking about that. All right, let's see what next question. What does a day in the life of an interpreter look like? We've kind of covered this a little bit, but if you guys have anything else to add, a day in the life of an interpreter. Dr. Sang, we'll start with you.
I remember when I was working at MGH, the hospital, first you start with commute, and then you travel to the place, and if no patient's appointment yet, you sit in the office and maybe do some paperwork and talk to your manager, start the day. And then when there are patients in need, you go to the site, to different departments within the hospital, and travels between departments and help them. And then you come back, have lunch. That's usually how the day looks like. Sometimes you don't have a full day appointments. They will tell you beforehand how many appointments you have that day. So you are kind of prepared and relaxed in working in a hospital like that.
So by departments, you're talking about like you would go sometimes to the OBGYN, sometimes to the ER. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, okay. To the radiology, to the pediatrics. Yes, you go to different departments. Sorry.
And you knew ahead of time. It wasn't like on demand type of thing. What type of appointments you would have that day?
Yeah, they will tell you beforehand. Sometimes there are emergency calls, but those are rare. They try to be organized.
Okay, awesome. How about you, Tatiana?
Well, like I said, I kind of tried to have a long morning, and then you get the camera ready and you sit at your workstation. By the way, Dr. Lee, my desk has an option to raise. I've never done it, but I like to know it's there if I want to do it. Absolutely, very, nowadays they make great ergonomic office equipment. I would want to call it that. you know. And when I was talking about comfortable chair, I didn't mean comfortable to fall asleep and comfortable to sit and work. I want to note that.
Ergonomically
Yes,
comfortable,
yes,
and that
exactly.
doesn't like really hurt your spine and things like that.
Mhm.
Very good.
So nowadays, my shifts, I have 5-hour shifts from 9 to 2 in my time zone, Monday through Friday. So, and like I said, we get pretty busy. Theoretically, depending on the length of the call, on average, you would get in 5 hours at least 10 calls if they're more or less like, say, 20-minute each average. But sometimes there will be longer calls. For example, the long ones would always be physiotherapy, because normally it's either 30 minutes or sometimes an hour, depends.
Mhm.
Some sort of psych evaluations, stuff like that. There is sometimes a bit legal involved, then that could take, you know, a longer time. And then the shorter ones would be like just check-in process, you know, registration desk or pharmacy calls and stuff like that. So depending how long the calls you will, but on average, like I said, at least 10 calls. So we're pretty busy. And then after my shift, like I said, I try to do something, you know, some sort of physical activity. When the weather permits, I go hiking. Now 110 degrees, no hiking for me. So I'm trying to do some yoga just on the mat and stuff like that. Yeah. And in the second part of the day, again, theoretically, if you have a booked on-site appointment, you can go. In my case, all MiTio's sessions run in the evening. So I have 3 times a week live training sessions, and if any students book one-on-one sessions, all that falls into my second part of the day. Yeah.
Wow. I'd like to kind of dig deep a little bit into your remote. So are you getting calls from all over the nation or just certain regions?
All over.
All over, okay.
Geography is pretty amazing. In the beginning, I started kind of okay, like North Carolina, just for me to see, and then I realized, oh, they're like everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, coast to coast.
And then you mentioned the different types of appointments. So have you had any appointments that are like over an hour? And then how do you handle the fatigue? Because that could get pretty daunting for your head, right?
Yes, those can be pretty daunting. And it's actually weird that sometimes, not necessarily you get tired when you interpret a lot. The ones that run long, say, dentist appointments, you say a couple of words every now and then when the crown is being installed. Right. But you're on camera, you can't. This is more difficult than having to interpret a long session, honestly. Then you start feeling like you can't do that, you know? Right.
Yes.
But yes, there are sometimes pretty long sessions, the loaded sessions. Fortunately, if you really have to, if you feel like the quality of your interpretation suffers if it goes down, in our company, the company that I work for, there is an option to transfer the call to your colleague.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's good to know.
Yeah.
All right, because that does happen, especially for ASL. That's a requirement. If something's going to be a long session, they require you to have more than one interpreters present. So that's good to know.
Yeah, so there is an option. Yeah.
So very good. All right. So we've kind of covered this question already. What other types of interpretation are out there? We've talked about conference and business and obviously medical. Do you guys want to kind of touch on court interpreting? Because we haven't really talked about that. I mean, that's a major source of interpretation here in our country. Who would like to start us on that one?
Well, I would think you really have to be trained in it in terms of terminology.
Okay. The jargon.
Also, even when they speak, when it's oral, presentation, lawyers speak as if they read off the book.
Yes.
Right. So sometimes, even in medical sessions, there could be segments of, I would say, like semi-legal. Well, even say, for example, advanced directives, stuff like that, or during, say, psych evaluation, when it's about, appointing someone, when they need to determine if the patient, is coherent enough to make decisions and stuff like that. So also what we are trained in, even if you're not trained as court interpreter, you can, first of all, you have to be transparent and say that you are not legal interpreter. However, if they can kind of minimize the terminology, and if everything that they want to the patient to know can be delivered in more or less, let's say layman language, fine. Again, like I said, some of our interpreters are also trained in court, and if you feel, and there's nothing embarrassing about it, if you feel that this is not something you can handle, it's okay to transfer to your colleague who you know can. But say, even though I love watching legal, everything legal, I personally, I think it's important to know what you can and cannot do. The legal, why I'm in medical is because it's a non-adversary environment. Everyone is looking same direction. Everybody's interested in the same thing. Legal is much more entangled. No, not for me. Yeah, so you have to like it. You have to want it. It's super interesting to watch, but yeah, you have to, and definitely you need training in it.
Got it. Got it. How about you, Dr. Payne? What are your thoughts on court interpreting?
Personally, I didn't do any court interpretation because it requires extra education and certification. I think there's no national certificate for court interpretation yet, I guess, but it's state-wise, you have something that you need to be proved for your state court. And then, but I worked in a lawyer's office for a while for patent work, that I did some translation for legal terms, and that's pretty different. I would say you have to really study the terms, like Tatiana said. And luckily in MiTio, we also have this court interpretation course that you can check out. So for court interpretation students, we also provide in our live sessions the court interpretation materials that you can practice. So we do provide two types of materials, either medical or court, depending on which course you're coming from.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that plug. But I did want to stress that although there is no national certification, as you mentioned, each state has it, and a lot of the training, honestly, that you guys go through, even for medical, can be used towards your, court interpreting. And as Tatiana mentioned, the oftentimes when you, even in medical, you can always say, hey, please lower the register, right? Change it to a more simplified language, and that way you can translate. So just for anyone that's out there that's interested in court interpreting, it doesn't have to be as daunting, because you can always request that. Not that they're going to honor it, the lawyers and the judges, but that is something that you can definitely request. And then your training, even if you just have medical interpreter training, can be used towards your court certification. That was interesting to discuss. There's lots of court interpreting needs out there for interpreters. Obviously, the immigration system, right, needs interpreters. Any child that presents themselves there that does not speak a language needs an interpreter, etc. So lots of opportunities for court interpreting. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. I know you guys mentioned a little bit of your bio, the languages that you speak, but how many languages do you interpret in? So even if you speak several languages, do you interpret in all of those languages? Tatiana?
No, I only interpret between English and Russian. Language is something that has to be, spoken all the time. Otherwise, well, we know it all, right? Even probably after vacation, you need to kind of get into gear, right? Yeah, so my Japanese is pretty much dormant, unfortunately. So professionally, I only interpret between English and Russian.
Got it. Got it. And how about you, Dr. Sun?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same situation that although I get certificates in medium, advanced level for Japanese, German, French, but I do not interpret into those languages because I don't feel comfortable. This is not my mother tongue. So I only do Mandarin English interpretation between Mandarin English.
Right. And this is a good time to talk about proficiency. So, with MiTio, we use the same proficiency requirements that the national board uses, which is you have to be an advanced level proficient in that language. Although we have the coaching sessions that will help with your proficiency, if you're not there, you just cannot move forward with the course or complete it unless you have that proficiency level. And it's good to know, like even people that might have, say, the coursework to prove their proficiency, it's good for them to know that it's important to have that fully proficient level in the language that you want to interpret, because you have lives on the line, especially in the healthcare field, right? Lives are on the line, and we don't want accuracy to be an issue for them getting the best care that they want, that they deserve to get. So thank you for bringing that up and for being responsible interpreters. So you both mentioned, I don't feel comfortable enough, and that's really good. That means that you're taking that very seriously. All right, so let's talk about CEUs. How many do you guys continue with your education? And if so, what does that look like? Dr. Zhang, if you could share that.
Yes, after the certification, I think you need to get CEUs for every 4 or 5 years, depending on if it's CMI or CCHI. I'm planning on taking more courses from MiTio to qualify for the CEUs. They have, for example, I have in mind the mental health interpretation or court interpretation, but I'm not sure that's relevant for the medical certification. But definitely, I'm going to take the mental health interpretation CEU in the next year.
Wonderful. All right. How about you, Tatiana?
Well, definitely CEUs are compulsory, because you will not get recertified if you don't go through a certain amount of additional training. However, I think you would want to do them anyway, because it kind of keeps you from stagnation. You do learn something. You always need to kind of expand both your vocabulary and knowledge in medical field, which is like absolutely limitless. I'm pretty sure even for Dr. Pei, right? Because there's always, and nowadays, always something new comes up, right? Also, not just MiTio's CEUs are there. What I'm doing right now is also, I went for IMIA's, what they call lifetime, what do they call, lifetime learning webinars. So every month they run one webinar, and there's always different speaker. Some of them are from abroad. The other day we had someone from Spain. Then there was another speaker from France. So it's fun as well, not just, additional education, definitely. So I think it's important, and I actually enjoy it.
That's really good. Yes, anyone in the healthcare field knows that continuing education just comes with the territory, because you want to just keep your skills up and keep them current, right, and up to date. And I love that the plug that you did about IMIA is really good to be plugged into associations, go to conferences whenever you can. Of course, MiTio has our CEUs and our CEU subscription program as well. But it's really important to get that breadth of information from all the different angles, all the different places, definitely that can enhance your professionalism. It means that you take your profession seriously. That's really what it comes down to. Next question. Why do you feel that MiTio is the best training for certification, and what makes MiTio different?
Oh, okay, I'll start. So the best thing of MiTio is completely online, that you can do it anywhere in the world, anytime you want. As I mentioned, when I did the course, I was still in Germany somewhere. I took the course maybe after midnight in the US time. So you can do it whenever you want. That's one of the best things. And also I think it's very affordable among other programs. And nowadays with all the scholarships, the financial aid opportunities, and even learn first, pay after you get a job, things like that. So it's also very affordable. Even if you don't have any money in your pocket, you can try this out and see if this is what you want for your life. Also, that's what inspires me is Dr. Lee. Personally, you are like a role model of mine. You are like women, female from minority, and you started all this and become an entrepreneur. That's really inspiring. So it's also very inspiring to learn from you and work with you. So I think that's why I love MiTio's, and I decided to work with MiTio for this long.
Thank you, Paige. Thank you so much for saying that. Awesome, Tatiana.
And I mean, MiTio is recognized in the industry. It is recognized by ECMI. So when they see that their students were trained here, there's no doubt that the training was, adequately provided. Because again, based on my own experience, for sure, everything we needed to know to pass our national certification was there. Yeah. So, and we are accredited by IMIA. So I think we just have all the components necessary.
Yes, I want to just do a plug on that. We're only one of two institutions now that's accredited by the IMIA. I was checking on their website the other day. Yes, and certification is definitely close to my heart. I was one of the first chair of the National Board Certification. Back before we had certification, so was a subject matter expert and all of that. I mean, I'm passionate about interpreters becoming credentialed and prepared and credentialed in this field, most definitely. Okay, we'll have one more question and we can wrap up. What are the challenges, the difficulties that you guys might experience as interpreters, whether you work remotely or face-to-face? What are some of the challenges? Kind of open up the eyes of those out there that are thinking about this profession.
Yeah.
So, anyone can start.
I would say technical issues sometimes can be very frustrated if they occur. Especially nowadays, because everyone wears a mask, and on top of the mask sometimes there's a shield. And even when you are just in real life, sometimes I have to ask a cashier several times, like, because you can't read lips. If you could not hear very well, there you go. So that presents a real challenge. You don't want to be asking question all the time, ask for repetition all the time, but sometimes you have no choice. It completely breaks the flow. You start getting anxious. The provider also, gets a little bit annoyed. It doesn't happen often, but unfortunately, sometimes technical issues, may be there. Especially, I think, at least with video remote interpreting, at least you have video clues. With phone only, when you have no video feed, you don't have a picture, so you're completely unaware of what's going on. So that can be pretty challenging. Sometimes there can be an emotional component depending on the session, if it's like end of life discussion, or when you have to deliver a pretty unpleasant diagnosis. Yeah. So, and this is where actually I learned that you want to say, hello, I'm such and such a Russian. I realized that now I have to be more careful about be a little bit more neutral when you appear on camera, because you have no idea the context that you're stepping into. Sometimes it may not be a very pleasant conversation and you feel very awkward showing up all smiles when all of a sudden there is a sick child there,
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to just dig dig a little bit into that before we go to Dr. Pei. Tatiana, how do you keep yourself emotionally grounded in those situations?
I will be completely honest to you. I don't know. Somehow, sometimes you really have to take a deep breath, and you're never really truly prepared, especially if you have like personal connection with something, reminds you of something, and it really triggers things in you. I wish I had a good answer. You can do it, definitely. It's possible. Again, luckily, depending on the company that you work for, in the company in AMN, they are very aware that sometimes there can be cases like this, and they can give you those couple minutes, after the session to really, catch your breath and, even maybe meditate, whatever techniques work for you to leave it behind and step into another session, like a completely new interaction. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Dr. Zahn, how about you? What are some of the challenges that you have seen working as an interpreter?
I think when I was working in the hospital in person interpreting situations, sometimes the patient will go over the line and you really meet ethic dilemmas. Sometimes they will ask for your personal information, like for your phone number. They say, my grandma really needs help. Can I contact you later for this and that? Or sometimes they say, I really have this issue with my insurance card. Can you call my insurance for me? But then in 10 minutes, you have your next appointment. You don't know if you can finish this issue within 10 minutes to help them. And these situations that often run into, I know we were all trained and we studied all the ethic protocol practice standards and everything, but in real life, still you meet situations that it's kind of hard for you to say no, but you shouldn't do that for the patients. Sometimes it's really difficult for me still. Sometimes there's no good answers for these.
And this is why remote interpreting is easier, because once you click that camera off, you're gone. But if you're on site, you're still standing there, so all those extra questions can, keep coming.
Got it. So there's challenges to both. There's pros and cons to both, and you guys have really done a great job of showcasing that. And basically, we wanted to do this for prospective students and for those that are thinking about the industry, entering it, because they might have been a family member that was asked to interpret or something like that. A lot of our students come to us with that story, but they don't know the full scope, right? And so you guys have done an amazing job tonight, giving us a real good deep dive into the life of an interpreter and pros and cons. And thank you so much. I appreciate the time that you guys both took to do that. So would you guys like anything? How would you like to complete the session with any last words of advice or wisdom? Dr. Zhao.
My advice to medical interpreters is keep learning, polish your medical terminologies all the time, and have confidence in yourself. And you will make it.
Wonderful. And Tatiana?
Yeah, and I have to say that so far, morally, this was the most fulfilling job that I've ever done, honestly. Yeah, you do feel like you are making a difference. You're helping. Yeah.
And you are making a difference. It is a fulfilling job. That's why medical field, period, right?
Yes.
You are definitely. It's a calling for sure. Well, thank you guys again for your time and for your expertise.
Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Well, thank you guys both. Let's stop the call at this time.